We're really doing this, huh?
Crash and burn, Mav. At this point, what do we have to lose? They can't fire us again, right?
In our very first episode, we're diving into the chaos of modern college sports. From million-dollar NIL deals and 2-year jersey retirements to the important question no one's brave enough to ask. Should you really post a 42-point loss on social media and pretend it's fine?
Oh no, that's my phone. Let me check it real quick. HR meeting alert. Sure, it's just to thank us for working too much and taking everything way too personally.
One bad takeaway from HR suspension, one great takeaway from getting you hooked on this show.
Episode 1, let's go.
Andale. This is the true story of two washed-up sports guys who chased the dream. Private flights, championship rings, running sideline to sideline on per diem and adrenaline.
We gave our 20s and 30s to the industry, pulled off miracles that were never in the job description. In return, low pay, long hours, and we still got cut from the team.
This is about what really happens behind the badge, the burnout, the bad bosses, the dream job that didn't love you back. But also the lifelong friendships, the chaos, the holy shit stories you couldn't make up. And somehow, despite everything, you'd still do parts of it all over again.
This is for the ones who lived it, loved it, hated it, and still kind of miss it. For everyone who's ever asked, how in the hell did we survive that? We are two former sports insiders with more than 40 years of experience and more than enough scars to make fun of it all.
And just enough trauma to start a podcast instead of going to therapy.
I'm Brandon Barca.
And I'm Andy Boggs.
And this is no longer credentialed. We once had access, now we have opinions.
Podcast. You get it. All right, we're kicking off a segment called Quick Hitters. 3 news headlines, but with a twist, through the eyes of people who actually worked in sports. Leading off, nobody talks about the poor staffers scrambling to order the wrong size jersey frame.
That's right. We're talking Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter getting their jerseys recently retired at Colorado after only 2 seasons. Because nothing says thank you for your service like a last-minute plaque order during the busiest time of year. Boggs, kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, you chalk this one up to Coach Prime and his marketing moves, and I like Prime. He's a Florida State guy, so he's one of my OGs. But working for him or working with him has got to be one of the biggest challenges in sports. His whole family works for the football program. They all get access and break all the news. And as a staff member, you're stuck doing the work and answering questions from the media. From a PR standpoint, that's a really tough job. And, at this point, if you're covering a team, you're probably used to all the shenanigans. I mean, we could have a show just talking about Prime and working with him, and I can't even imagine. Again, it's got to be the toughest job in sports.
Yeah, while everyone's, talking about should their jerseys be retired after 2 years, I always look at it from a staffing perspective and all of the work that's going in behind the scenes, the getting the flowers ready, the poor video squad having to create special hype videos to be used online, and the graphic designers and coordinating the in-game or in-spring game presentation and all those things. And just really just a lot of extra, I would call unnecessary work during the what's always a busy time of year, especially in college sports with so many things going on. But I kind of equate it to, there have been places that I've worked for 2 years, and probably you've worked for 2 years. And I just can't imagine pulling 2 years of service and then they're saying, Boggs, we'd like to retire your, what would retire your laptop? And
I mean, for me, though, as a PR dude, you have access to everyone in the department. Like, everyone comes to you. You're the steward of the program. And so you also have former athletes sometimes emailing you or calling you and coming by. And so I can't, you're taking a call from, I mean, I don't know if Eric Bieniemy is in there or not, but you could be taking a call from Bieniemy like, what the heck, dude? These guys have been here for 2 years, and I won a national championship at Colorado, and, you know, you're going to retire their jersey if we're going to retire mine. I don't know if his jerseys are retired. That's an example, but, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I think about. There's all the people in that record book. There's probably a few more that could, you know, deserve to have their jersey retired instead of these two guys. Maybe in 5 or 6 years when they're like all pros or whatever, bring them back, but doing it right away, it's Prime, man. That's what you got to do with Prime.
Sounds like you've been a communications specialist for a couple years.
Just a few, man. Just a few.
Personally, I don't, at the end of the day, I really don't care if someone gets their jersey retired or not from a perspective of like Hall of Fames or any of those types of things. I mean, they obviously helped turn the program around the last 2 years and did some really big things. But to me, it's just mostly more of a pile on of here's just way more additional things for staff to do, to get burned out on. And, and the expectation, because it's such a special moment, right? Those things don't happen often with teams. And so to me, it's just so many more hours of work that go into this that probably take away from a lot of the other priorities that need to be done.
Yeah, that like when I see stuff like that, like the pit of my stomach just drops, or I see a 30-minute, documentary video that Prime puts out. He puts out tons of the stuff. It's like, man, I can't even imagine doing all that. I just can't even imagine working out there. I mean, I tried to go on their staff directory, see how many videographers, and I don't think they even list all of them. I mean, it's got to be an army of people.
Yeah, I haven't looked at their staff directory. I do check the job sites every now and then, and Colorado seems to have some regular jobs popping back up from time to time. So take from it what you will. It's a beautiful part of the country. I've lived in Colorado before, worked with high maintenance coaches before as well. There are a lot of perks as far as having the access and the ability to do really, really incredible all access things, things that fans want, but being able to sustain that level is tough to do over a couple of seasons. If you're a content creator or a comms person, it can wear you down pretty quickly.
Yeah. I agree. I think we both can agree that would be a really, really difficult job.
Quick hitter number 2. Let's move on to the Venmo era of college sports, the NIL world. We've heard a few things about that in the news, and it's really where chaos is the only rule.
Yeah, so enter Nico from Tennessee, switching teams after spring practice. UCLA quarterback comes to Tennessee. He goes out there. There's talk of direct payments to athletes. And notice we don't say student athletes. It's total anarchy. There's no rules. It's really sad. I have so many conflicting thoughts about it. And, I mean, honestly, BB, I mean, we really don't have a show long enough to speak about the circus of what's going on. I mean, we both work there, and, I mean, I don't know about you, but I hold my nose every time anything in the news comes up about the current state of that space. Or, when a game comes on TV, like this past fall, I did not watch a lot of college football, at least until the end. I mean, granted, Florida State was 2-10, so I don't really have a lot of things to watch if they're bad. But, there's just so many conflicting feelings about college sports. I mean, if I'm honest, it shaped a lot of my relationships I have on this planet. And but the whole thing is ridiculous. And I don't think anything will change with the people in charge. But, Barca, I have some ideas. Maybe we'll get to them in a later pod.
Give us one idea. Give us just a little taste here.
I mean, I think the number one thing is that you got to have some collectively bargained rules with players. Contract. Just have a certain language. I'm not a lawyer, but just have contracts with the same language across all levels. And transfer fees, and I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could talk about to fix everything, and it's just it's maddening. But then again, I mean, then I get to the point, it's like, was college sports even the right way to do sports? Should we do like an Olympic model? Should the government step in and have like a czar for, Olympic sports for under 23? Or, I mean, my mind just goes in a million different directions when thinking about the solutions. And I just know right now it's really messed up.
Yeah, I think one way to describe it is just, ongoing dysfunction. I think that's pretty typical in college sports overall. They never really seem to come up with the best possible outcome in any of the decision they make, whether it's the playoffs or now we're dealing with NILs. I've always been a firm believer that athletes should be able to earn what they're worth, and especially as these TV deals have gotten so massive, and schools are generating revenue off their name. So I'm all for that. I almost play the flip side. Like, I want to see the circus come to town. I want things to get crazy. Let's just, I saw something in news where maybe there are going to be direct payments now instead of going through a third party. So let's do it. It's the same way here in Nashville. People that have lived here for a long time, me included, will mention old Nashville before it became booming and everyone moved here. And now you've got the bachelorette parties downtown, and it's like another Mardi Gras here in the South, and, Bourbon Street, and a lot of old Nashville's against it. But myself, I'm all for it. Let's make it as crazy as possible. Drunken people falling over on bird scooters, people wooing outside of buses.
Yeah.
But let's just keep it contained to that one area. So college sports, hey, you know what? Let's get crazy. But to your point,
crazy.
Yeah, and to your point though, the biggest issue I have is with schools kind of, we saw it in March Madness too, maybe a little bit of fall off of the mid majors, schools really pillaging mid majors,
right,
to refresh their rosters in the off season. And I think there should be some sort of compensation package there. There should be something, like you said, maybe more of a soccer transfer fee rule, to where those schools are getting compensated to where, they can get additional revenue coming in for their own NIL deals and things like that. And so, it is kind of fun as a sports fan to be able to see, a lot of times if you have a really bad football team or basketball team, you're like, man, we're stuck for 3 or 4 years until we can get a couple of good recruiting classes in. Now it's like, hey, you know what? St. John's, we're right back on the map.
Right.
And I don't know, from that perspective, it makes it entertaining if you're a fan of a school that doesn't normally, at the top of the ladder.
But then you're not. I think what the women's game, it's, you can't go to the WBA until you're 22 or whatever. So there's consistency there, and like, you knew Paige Beckers was playing at Connecticut for 4 years, and Caitlin Clark, and now Juju at USC. I know she's hurt, but she's been there for a year or two, and so I think that hurts the game as far as marketing and TV, and I mean, you just don't make it's not like these people anyway, but you kind of feel like you know them if they're wearing the jerseys for 2 years. I mean, I was lucky enough to be around a program that had players for 3 or 4 years, and you got to know them, and the fans got to know them, and they knew who they were coming to see every night. And so, but I got a question for you. So when you're 12 and you're following college sports or whatever, does it even enter into your mind that these kids should have been paid? Like, I fell for the whole thing, right? Like, I fell for the whole thing. I mean, they should have been paid in 1995 too. I mean, when I'm going to games and there's 80,000 people there paying, $50 a pop to be there, and these kids get gear, and Peter Wart gets in trouble for like getting free shoes. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, they probably should have been making money for a long time. It's just, I never thought about it. Not one time. Did you?
Yeah, probably what got me most thinking about it was watching the Ken Burns baseball documentary, the 9 innings,
Hmm.
and they really got into uh, just where players didn't have much control where they played. You get into the Kurt Flood and, don't want to rehash all of that history. But, when you think about that, I thought for a long time working in sports that at some point stuff was going to hit the fan because players were being restricted when it comes to name rights and everything else. And obviously the O'Bannon trial really started to open things up over the years, over the last 10 years or so. And so um, I could see it as one of those things. Like I always looked at it like 20 years from now, we're going to be looking back and be like, can you believe this is what the setup
Right.
was?
Right. I think about that
And
now.
so,
I think about it now. I mean, I had no. I mean, again, I remember we went on a foreign trip with basketball, and I remember filling in my tour guide on how college sports worked. He goes, "What? Like that's you guys? Thousands of people come to college games, and and then he asked, do you pay them?" And I was like, "No, we don't pay them." And again, it didn't click, and I don't know what clicked. I mean, but it's clicked and it's there, and I don't know. It's just people bury. I don't know whether people bury their heads in the sand or they're just trying to protect the moneymakers at all costs. And it probably is the second one. Don't you? I mean, what do you think about that?
yeah, I mean, I think in any business, a lot of times people are looking out for their own, right?
Right.
So,
I just don't think there's anybody that has the well-being of the sport at the front of their minds when they put 2 feet on the floor in the morning. I don't think there's anybody out there that does that. I don't think Greg Sankey does. I don't think the Big Ten commissioner does. The NCAA guy may, but he's got no juice. So there's this power vacuum, and Sankey's like, yeah, I'll step in there and take it. I'll go grab Oklahoma and Texas while you guys are sleeping. You know, I'll go Big Ten. I'll go out west and get these brands. I mean, I don't care. I mean, the good of the good of the kids and the good of the game. I mean, it's just all. There's no rules, so it's like the Cowboys make going into an NFL owners meeting and making all the rules. Think about that for
yeah,
a
you
second.
the issue is like you said, like if you don't have a sports czar or somebody over it all,
Yeah,
when you mentioned the Sankeys and the other conferences that have gotten bigger and stronger, and then the other ones that have gotten left behind, it's really their only play right now, right?
yeah,
Because you don't want to be one of the conferences left behind, right? So everyone's taking
right,
care of themselves, but there is a grander solution. We could sit here and map it out here for an hour
right.
of what the perfect scenario is for college sports moving forward. But like you said,
What's going to cause them to
until
do it?
something happens that brings all of these powerful leagues, maybe it's Big Ten and SEC working together to form this bigger league, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Until then, it's again
it's
dysfunction at its finest,
yeah.
and the fan. We've seen a lot of improvements in the sport over the years. I remember growing up when college football games would end in ties,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
The best college football teams wouldn't play in the playoff,
right.
and so we've seen improvements, but it's been at such a slow rate over the last 20 or 30 years when we all know how to fix everything. And we won't get into the bowl system
Ugh,
or,
awful.
the greed of obviously the conferences to survive. We've talked about it. Just, I don't know. I think, it's money over what's best for the fan. And
Yeah,
so
and the kids and the
basically
schools.
every other sport has figured out this format,
Right.
like every other level of sport. And so
Yeah, I just
I,
don't.
I don't know.
I don't either. I mean, the only solution that I see that could maybe do it is if some hedge fund or some private equity fund comes in and says, okay, Alabama and Florida and Georgia and Texas, I'm paying you guys $250 million a year, but I'm only taking 35 of you guys. I mean, it's the Premier League for college football, and the sad thing is there probably wouldn't be relegation and promotion, which, can you imagine if college football had relegation and promotion? I can't even
All for it.
freaking imagine how
All
great
for
that would
it.
be, man. It would be. I got a Sankey story if you want me to tell it to you.
I'm all ears.
Were you there when he came and visited? Were you still working when he came and talked to the whole staff? You probably weren't. Anyway, we were wrapping up, and I was like, man, do I ask this dude a question? Like, it's Greg Sankey's. And going in, he seems to be a really nice guy. I've never really talked to him, but, he's sharp. He reads books all the time. He talks about all the books he reads. So I shyly, raised my hand. I'm like, so, Commissioner, what would you think if, each sport had a czar, and took, was, in control, not control, but just could guide sports to the best thing, the best ways to do things for a sport. And at that moment, first off, I had a Carolina blue hoodie on, and he started calling me Carolina blue hoodie or something. And he basically looked at me like I had three heads. And from that moment forward, I was not surprised when I saw anything that came from the SEC, because that guy was looking out for the SEC. And he should be. That's his job. And so when Oklahoma and Texas go to the SEC, I'm like, it's just kind of what, he's in control. Again, there's a power vacuum. He's jumped into it. And, God bless him. I just think it's bad for the sport. It's bad for the kids. I mean, can you imagine being a Rutgers volleyball player or a USC volleyball player or a USC basketball player, and you're playing Rutgers on a Wednesday night? I mean,
I can't imagine being an athlete, so.
I can't either.
Just because I wasn't born with those talents.
Oh, I'm not either. But you've been on those planes with those kids. We're flying back after an hour. These guys are flying back after 4. It's just terrible for the kids. And, I hope it changes, but I'm not holding my breath. I'll turn blue, multiple shades, Carolina blue.
That Sankey question, I wish I'd been there for that, because I would have probably been ragging you about it forever. It brings up the old all staff emails that go wild when you're sitting in the office and everyone keeps hitting reply all from 150 people.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a point where one person speaks up and says, please stop hitting reply all. And then, someone, I think it was you, probably, instead of sending a personal message to that person, accidentally hit reply all to everybody and said, hell yeah.
I said, hell yeah, dude.
So, hell yeah. Hell yeah, dude. So, sometimes you got to speak up. Sometimes makes things uncomfortable.
Up, man.
So,
but
that's why we're here.
I love college sports growing up. I hope that they can fix it. But man, it's in a bad spot right now. It just really is. And I was going to ask you this later, and I guess we can move on to a different topic in a second, but I mean, has it affected your viewing habits? Has it affected your love for it? Or, I'm just wondering,
for sure.
When's it going to get to be a breaking point? I mean, their ratings this past year on ABC and ESPN were through the roof. I mean, their games were just incredible. Just their matchups, Texas and Alabama and Georgia and Alabama. And, I mean, it was just brand after brand after brand after brand after brand. But is there get to a point where people are like, I'm out. This is just too big of a circus for me. I just don't want to do it.
I've spent more time watching pro sports.
Right.
Over that. And, from a college football perspective, didn't watch a ton of the regular season. Definitely tuned in for the new playoff format. Didn't really tune into the other bowl games that are going on. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's by design, based on the whole new format, to where every game isn't, life or death. to make it to the playoffs as it was in the past. But more so, I think it deals with, I just don't identify with players regularly going through a program, seeing them grow, having them for 3 or 4 years, and just, there's a selfishly, like the fans are repping the teams, which is completely understood, while the players are starting to rep themselves, which is also completely understood. And so that makes it more difficult for me to watch. We had the same problem in college basketball a lot of times with the one and dones, when we started seeing the Kentuckys and the Dukes and all of those schools, to where you weren't used to seeing players play 3 or 4 years. And at first it's great seeing all the biggest names and the biggest, recruits, the 4 or 5 stars, coming on board. But after a while, there's a little bit of a disconnect in the relationship of going through a career with a student athlete, watching them day in and day out and through the highs and lows. And so, yeah, it's a problem. I'd love to see some sort of contractual commitment, whether it's a 2-year contract or something to where, or a limit on the amount of times you can jump in the portal. I'm not against the portal. There's just got to be a rational solution as far as, just, it's crazy. It's crazy right now, and just not good for the fan.
Yeah.
All right. We might have to change this name to long hitters.
That's
instead
right.
of quick hitters. The intent originally was to get through these pretty fast, but they're all just big topics, and we have a lot of things to say. And so let's move on to the third and final quick or long hitter. I'm going to call it things teams don't publicize at games. What's something we wouldn't publicize at a game on our socials? Oh, yeah. 3 fights broke out in the stands. And guess what? Our beloved home fans went 0 for 3 in those brawls. One guy lost a shoe, another lost his dignity, and someone's granny is trending on TikTok. But what is something we actually did publicize about the game? I'll tell you, a 24-2 loss. Shout out to all of you socials and admins proudly publishing that L, some because you're required to. Which raises the question, and Kyle Brandt's been big on this from Good Morning NFL, and he got a little bit of heat from admins that thought he didn't know what he was talking about. I actually side with a lot of what he has to say. Do we really need to own every blowout just because we've always done it?
Right.
What happened to graphic unavailable due to technical difficulties? And warning about this segment may trigger social media managers everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of these discussions. I mean, like almost every time we talk on the phone, I mean, that social media has changed so much. I mean, we have people in charge of those departments in 2025 who don't want to make changes or upset the apple cart, or frankly don't know how to even make those changes. I mean, there's a few out there that do, but they're a pretty rare breed. And we both know it needs to be turned completely upside down. I mean, I at one point during COVID, I'm sitting at home, there's no games going on, and like I'm developing this content calendar to post something every day. And, I guess that was probably warranted, but I mean, like we had to post something every day on our social feeds, no matter like we were in season, not in season. I just thought it was just not very genuine. But I'll say this, the college administrators, at least most of the ones I've worked with and some that I know or interview with, have no interest in doing the right thing with social media or PR. I had an interview with some folks a while back and started rattling off all the things we could be doing, and their eyeballs turned to glazed donuts. There are so many opportunities to be better, and they just don't have any interest to commit resource to it. So this is in your wheelhouse, so how would you address this?
I am someone that has always lived as a mad scientist. I never like to be what I call a hamster on a wheel. I never like to be doing the same thing over and over again just to do it. I like to break the trend. Hey, look, I get some of the points from social media managers. It could be one, hey, there's a sponsor attached to this. There's workarounds to that. Two, the engagement levels are crazy. That is true, because you're getting all the trolls and everybody else. People, like anything in sports or life, when things go wrong, people are more vocal publicly or on social. And so you got the engagement numbers. But I just am someone that's always reevaluating what's the purpose, if it's effective, does this convey what the brand wants to convey? People can get the scores anywhere. And I know some fans will still check Twitter or some of the other platforms for it, but I don't concern myself about wash, rinse, repeat. Like, hey, here's the pregame walk-in that we're grabbing photos for, and obviously the starting lineup, and here's a scene setter from the field, and the team walking out during intros, and then it's time for kickoff, and then score updates and this and that. Like, and I have, I've been part of the problem in the past for a lot of these things as well. And there are times where I would have said like, yeah, well, we need to post this, that, or that. And, sometimes these places in the past would get heated. It was like, oh my gosh, this team, all the trolls would be like, they didn't post the final score, post the final score, post the final score. And, I don't believe in just placating to those types of things just to do it. I don't think necessarily it means that you have to go silent. Obviously, you're juggling, trying to make sure that you don't disrespect the coaching staff and the players to where they'll turn on you. And then also, I think there's always a good way to find a way to connect with a fan base when, even when things are not going right. And so I just don't, when I saw that conversation happening online with Kyle Brandt, I never joined those conversations to first be like, well, this is why it can't happen, and this is why you can't do it, and this is why it doesn't work, and this, that, and that. And you don't know enough about, gatekeeping, social media managing in general. And I don't believe in that. I think it's actually a valid point, and it should increase discussion on, should we be doing this? And, while it gets great engagement, is that great for the sponsor? I've always gone back to the table and tried to figure out, okay, if this isn't the best possible way to handle this situation, let's go back to the table. You've built relationships with your partnerships teams. Go back and let's figure something else for this right here. I don't know. I don't want to be the hamster on the wheel. I always want to be assessing analytics, the pulse of the fan base, all of those things. And starting with score updates and being like, you have to post a final score.
Right.
No, we don't have to do anything.
No, we don't.
We're doing it because we feel that it's the right thing to do. Sure. If you have a purpose and a plan to what your content strategy is, sure. But that has never flown with me. And, I'm somebody that would always question everything when it comes to content and strategy. I question myself all the time and things that we're doing, and it can ruffle feathers for sure. But again, getting out of the habit of just doing it to do it and finding different ways to entertain and engage your fans is important. And posting 24-2 final score or whatever it is, to me, I don't know. Yeah. Just doesn't.
You just don't need to be doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again just because you've always done it. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with everything. Just be a little bit more creative in what you're doing. And like you said, use your analytics to see what really works. And, I don't know if everybody's really doing that.
And I just don't want the engagement number as like, hey, we get great engagement. This makes our numbers looks good. At the end of the year, when I have to report on how we did on engagement in social media, and, I put these bullets on my resume.
Yeah.
Again, great. I love to be able to say that we had a 25% hike in X, Y, and Z and these platforms, but that to me is not the end all be all. And I'm not saying that's the only reason to post the final score. Some people feel like there's an obligation the same way, in comms, you guys have probably felt, well, there's always an obligation. We do our process this way. We do our game notes and we do our media guides, and we send transcribed quotes after games, and we use an AP recap for the release or whatever it is. And so I have never been I just won't do that same habit over time if I feel there's a better solution.
Sponsored by.
Today's episode is brought to you by Never Getting Promoted, from the makers of No Bonus Again This Year, finally, an empty promise you can believe in.
We're also sponsored by Find My Boss, the app that helps you locate your supervisor while you're sprinting across the stadium with your headset on and they're in the office eating a banana. Find My Boss because it's tough to command respect while double fisting a Chiquita. That's freaking incredible.
I'm up to my ears right now.
We're now on to our final segment, Up to Our Ears. We're up to our ears about these topics, and we can't take it anymore. Barca, you're up.
What is loyalty anyway? In sports, it's a myth, a slogan, a banner they hang in the hallway. But when it's your name on the spreadsheet, it disappears fast. You give a decade, your nights, weekends, holidays, and one day, you're just a badge that no longer scans. No goodbye, no parade, just an email in a locked building. Here's the truth. Take care of yourself first, because the job won't. Don't confuse access with value. Don't confuse the lifestyle with your identity. And don't ever think that burning out for the logo means they'll keep you around. You owe it to yourself to protect your time, your health, your future. Because when it all ends, and it always ends, you'll be the one left cleaning up the pieces. You're not a number. But the second you forget that, someone else will remind you.
Dude, that's legit.
Time to wrap it up.
And that's it for our first episode of No Longer Credentialed. Special thanks to the best intern that ever walked the planet, Travis Young, for his hilarious voiceovers. And thanks to you for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, tell a friend and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. Also, check us out on social media on X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube at NLC Pod. Next week, we rank the 5 suckiest jobs in sports, and we have a special interview with someone who has worked one of those jobs.
So, service industry, you're going to get a lot of complaints. And the ticket office, that's always a complaint.
If you're in the biz, keep grinding. Your few weeks of vacation aren't too far away. We'll see you next week.
Let me tell you about these guys doing this podcast right now. One of these guys spent all his time lifting weights with the strength and conditioning coach while he should have been upstairs working. The other guy, he was just a computer machine. That guy was wired differently. He was an odd guy, but boy, he worked hard, but he'd sleep on the job.